She was mocked the moment she walked into Summit Tech just for wearing a white t-shirt, carrying an old backpack, and not hiding the fact that she was the janitor's daughter. She probably only got the job because her dad pulled strings. The murmurs echoed across the break room. In the cafeteria, hot soup was spilled across her front, followed by a snide chuckle. Good thing that's not designer wear. No one imagined that the girl they laughed at today would walk onto the stage Monday morning and declare, "I am the new CEO." The sky beyond the towering glass facade of Summit Tech glinted with the promise of new beginnings, but Jessica Thompson's footsteps felt heavier than the late summer air. She kept her head low and tried to ignore the prying gazes of high-powered executives who swanned about the lobby in crisp suits. Their polished heels clicked on the marble, a sharp counterpoint to the squeak of her worn sneakers. A swift hush followed her whenever she wandered too close to any cluster of employees, as if her mere presence disrupted their world. She found herself thinking of her father, Frank Thompson, how he had walked these same corridors silent as the night shift he often took pushing a mop bucket or hauling trash bags. The memory of him always soothed her, recalling his cracked, calloused hands, the pride he carried even in a janitor's uniform, though no one ever offered him a handshake or a word of thanks. It was for him that she had returned to San Francisco after years away from him, that she entered Summit Tech's internship program with so little fanfare. But from the start, it seemed her father's role in the building overshadowed her, turning the entire environment into a stage for scorn. She tried to focus on her duties as a planning intern, burying herself in spreadsheets and project proposals in the open plan office. Yet day one found her the target of endless jibes. A tall woman from HR named Amanda took an immediate dislike to her. In the middle of a staff meeting, Amanda let her gaze wander over Jessica's worn clothes and scoffed, "Well, I guess some interns arrive prepared for the job and others come straight from the thrift store." Laughter bounced around the table, a cruel, knowing chorus. Jessica tightened her lips, refusing to snap back because she remembered how her mother once faced catty remarks for wearing secondhand dresses at a neighborhood gathering. Her mother had borne the insults with quiet dignity, never lowering herself to arguments. So Jessica stayed silent, focusing on the notepad in front of her, scribbling reminders about deadlines. But Amanda's barbs kept coming, thinly veiled in corporate politeness. "Jessica, if we wanted the cafeteria's perspective, we'd ask you, given your father's, expertise." The world parted in mocking smiles. Jessica felt each sneer, but let it pass through her. She had no interest in stooping to their level, not when her father had taught her that strength is often found in silence. When lunch rolled around, she ventured to the cafeteria, scanning for an empty seat. The place buzzed with ambitious employees wearing Summit badges and impeccable suits. She glimpsed her father slipping behind a door labeled maintenance and felt an urge to speak to him just for a comforting presence, but held back. She didn't want to risk him facing reprimand for talking to an intern when the corporate rules frowned upon fraternization between staff of different ranks. She grabbed a bowl of soup, half lost in thought, only to collide with a young man from IT, Brad, who accidentally stumbled into her. Hot soup drenched her shirt and the bowl clattered to the floor. A hush fell as those around them paused to watch. Brad smirked, fishing out his phone while she dabbed at the soup with napkins. "I'll just message the group chat," he announced theatrically, that a janitor is needed in aisle 3. "Oh wait, her dad's already here." The wave of laughter that followed stung more than the soup's heat against her skin. She bit down on her cheek, reminding herself to stay composed. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "They can laugh, but keep your head up, Jess. We know our worth." She lifted her gaze, meeting Brad's smarmy grin with an even stare, then continued gathering the soggy napkins without a word. Later that day, a corporate newsletter popped up in her mailbox featuring an announcement about the long-anticipated arrival of a new CEO, someone the board had selected after months of top-secret deliberations. The entire staff buzzed with speculation. Perhaps a senior executive from the parent conglomerate, or maybe a rising star from a Fortune 100 rival. Jessica heard the chatter in the corridors, at water coolers in the break room. No one suspected that the new CEO might be someone they already knew, least of all the unassuming interns so many had just mocked. She retreated to a corner cubicle, scanning the memo with faint amusement. "The incoming CEO will arrive Monday. All employees are to attend an official introduction in the atrium at 9 a.m. She read the lines, her lips curving into a subtle, almost invisible smile. Her father knew, of course, but they had decided to keep it secret until the time was right. That same day, her father texted her simply, "How's your day going? Remember, I'm proud of you. Don't let them get you down." She typed a quick reply, "All good, Dad. Thanks. Love you." Then she turned back to her work, ignoring the dull ache in her chest from the constant low-level hostility pervading every corner of Summit Tech's culture. She left late that evening to avoid running into Amanda or Brad or any of the other sneering employees. As she slipped out the front doors, she passed by the lobby floor she knew so well from childhood. The high-gloss marble used to dazzle her when she was small, visiting her father on the rare nights he had no choice but to bring her along during his cleaning shift. She remembered once crouching behind a column watching the well-dressed employees stride through as if they owned the world. She'd been just a kid in patched jeans looking for a place to do her homework. Those memories clung to her now as she stepped into the fresh evening air. A security guard she recognized from her father's stories nodded politely, not mocking at all. She gave him a small smile. Not everyone in Summit Tech was cruel. Some, like the guard, or a few quiet back-office workers acknowledged her presence kindly, seeing her as Frank Thompson's polite daughter. Still, the negativity from the higher-ups overshadowed those small kindnesses. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Amanda found excuses to critique Jessica's attire. "We have a dress code. T-shirts aren't exactly professional." Dylan, an executive assistant, took every opportunity to drop sarcastic remarks about how cleaning toilets must be excellent training for corporate roles. Jessica let the barbs roll off her, focusing on the tasks she'd been assigned, analyzing cost structures for a new product line, preparing data for a marketing pitch. She worked late, double-checked figures, kept her notes meticulous. She had a quiet confidence in her capabilities. After all, she wasn't merely an intern. She had a doctorate in economics from MIT, plus a stint as a senior advisor at the parent group that quietly owned Summit Tech. But none of these employees suspected that truth. They looked only at her father's profession and her nondescript clothes, concluding she was an unremarkable young woman with no future. She found herself reflecting on her mother's experiences, how she had been judged similarly for thrifted outfits or secondhand shoes. She remembered the time her mother had told her, "Sometimes it's simpler to let them underestimate you. They'll never see you coming when you finally stand up." On Thursday, Jessica faced a final humiliation that left her trembling in silent anger. She'd been scheduled to present a short plan to the planning committee, her first real opportunity to showcase her talents. Yet when she plugged in her USB drive and opened the file, it was replaced with a parody video. The screen showed dancing janitors scrubbing toilets set to mocking circus music. The text overlay read Jessica Thompson's master plan. The entire room erupted in laughter, with Amanda at the head of it, a wicked glint in her eye. Dylan sniggered from the second row while Brad typed furiously into the company group chat. Jessica's father appeared in the doorway at that moment, carrying supplies to fix a flickering overhead light. She saw heartbreak flash across his face as he realized the ridicule aimed at her. She forced her expression to remain neutral, though she sensed her father's wounded gaze. She stood there for a long moment in that humiliating hush, taking a slow breath. Her father gave her a nod, as if to say, "Don't let them see you cry," then turned away, shoulders drooping. The meeting ended in uproarious derision. Jessica walked out, fists clenched. That night she called her father from home, voicing the hurt that she'd hidden all day. He reassured her that soon all of this would pass. "You'll get your moment, honey," he said softly. Indeed, that moment came on Monday morning when the entire staff, some 1,000 employees, gathered in the grand atrium for the new CEO's official welcome. The sun streamed through the tall windows, spotlighting the stage decorated with Summit Tech banners. The speculation buzzed at fever pitch. Amanda stood near the front wearing a designer dress, having elbowed her way there to greet the incoming leader. Dylan and Brad hung around the edges, leaning against pillars, whispering snark about how incompetent or ancient the new CEO must be. Everyone stopped talking when the chairman of the board, a distinguished older man, walked onto the stage. He cleared his throat, scanning the crowd. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," he began in a resonant voice. "We've spent months searching for the right candidate to lead Summit Tech into its next phase of growth. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Jessica Thompson, MIT PhD in economics, former senior advisor to our parent group and daughter of Frank Thompson, who has served this building tirelessly for 2 decades. He paused, letting the statement echo in the sudden hush. The gasps started then, a ripple of shock racing through the crowd. At that cue, Jessica stepped onto the stage from behind a curtain. She still wore her plain white t-shirt beneath an elegant gray blazer, an odd blend of humility and authority, her hair in a simple ponytail and that same old backpack slung on one shoulder. The entire atrium seemed to hold its breath. Amanda's face went pale, her designer dress and smirking expression rendered ridiculous. Dylan dropped the coffee he'd been holding. Brad literally forgot to breathe, mouth half open. The hush was absolute until someone behind them whispered, "Oh my God, that's the janitor's daughter." Another faint voice stammered, "She's the CEO. This can't be real." Jessica's father stood by a side entrance in his modest uniform, heart pounding so loudly he thought it might echo through the hall. Jessica approached the microphone, gazing out at the sea of stunned faces. In that instant, she recalled all the jabs and insults, the spilled soup, the mockery in meetings, the janitor jokes. She breathed in deeply, exhaling a calm she had cultivated over years. She began, "Good morning. Some of you know me, or at least you thought you did. You might have assumed I was an intern unqualified for bigger roles. But as our chairman has stated, I am Dr. Jessica Thompson, your new CEO. And I learned everything I know about hard work from my father, Frank Thompson, the janitor. Many of you pass by without a second glance." Her voice carried a quiet steel. The crowd looked collectively transfixed. Without warning, Jessica tapped the projector controls on the stage's podium. Screen after screen of evidence flashed before the audience, transcripts of the company's internal chats, mocking her, video clips from security footage, capturing the cafeteria incident, the replaced file that humiliated her in the planning session, the memes circulated in private group chats referencing her father's cleaning supplies. Each item displayed painfully clear. She heard gasps, saw employees recognize their own words splayed across the giant screen. Then came the final images, the moment Brad spilled soup on her, the moment Amanda replaced her presentation, the text from Dylan mocking her posture. The hush deepened, turning the atrium into a silent confession box. Jessica let them watch, her expression measured, letting the weight of their acts speak for itself. When the last slide vanished, she returned to the mic. "My father taught me to treat everyone with dignity, no matter their job title," she said, voice steady, "because real worth doesn't live in a nameplate or a paycheck. These images and chats show how some of you forgot that. Some of you truly believe success is measured by how much you can humiliate those you deem lesser. That culture ends today." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Starting now, if you've ever justified humiliating someone for where they come from or what uniform they wear, reflect on it. Or leave this company. We'll be taking immediate steps to reshape our environment." A stir of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Disbelief, mortification, guilt, panic. Amanda near the front looked ready to faint. She'd worn a bright smile moments ago, expecting to kiss up to a powerful new leader. Now she realized that new leader was the very woman she had publicly ridiculed. Brad squirmed at the edges, trying to slip back unnoticed. Dylan, arms crossed, stared at the floor in stony shame. Jessica nodded to the chairman, who stepped forward and announced, "Those found to have participated in harassment or sabotage will face disciplinary action up to and including suspension or termination. Ms. Thompson has full board approval to enact these changes." The hush grew heavier. Some employees welcomed it, relieved that the toxic culture might be purged. Others trembled, fearful for their jobs. Jessica's father, still standing by the side entrance, swallowed hard tears, threatening. He had never seen his daughter speak so firmly, never imagined she'd hold such power on the very ground he swept daily. Right then, the chairman signaled for Frank Thompson to join them on stage. The old man hesitated, adjusting his janitor's uniform, face flushed with conflicting emotions. Jessica extended a hand, beckoning him gently. He approached, nerves jangling. As he reached his daughter, she placed a hand on his shoulder, guiding him to the microphone. The entire crowd watched. Jessica softly said, "This man, Frank Thompson, has been with Summit Tech for nearly 20 years, maintaining these halls, these offices, ensuring all of us had a clean, safe environment to work in. He did so with no recognition, no applause. Today I want to honor him." The chairman cleared his throat, lifting a small velvet box. "We'd like to present Frank Thompson with the Summit Medal of Distinguished Service, awarded for unwavering dedication beyond normal duties. Mr. Thompson, your commitment humbles us." He pinned a gleaming medal to Frank's uniform. The older man's eyes teared up, and when the applause broke out, it was louder than anything Jessica had heard in that atrium. She saw genuine admiration in many faces, but she also noticed some scowling, perhaps resenting that a janitor stood where they believed only suits belonged. Jessica gently embraced her father, feeling the warmth of his acceptance wash over her. This was their shared triumph, the father who once worried that his humble role would hold her back, now witnessing her transformation into the company's leader. She turned back to the crowd, taking in the stunned employees. "Today we also announced the creation of the Frank Foundation," she said, her voice steady yet emotional. "A scholarship and mentorship fund for children of custodial and service workers to ensure they can rise as far as their talent takes them, because no one's background should determine how high they can climb here at Summit Tech." The final line drew another wave of applause, though some clapped hesitantly, still reeling from the shock. Then Jessica fixed her gaze on Amanda, Brad, and Dylan, each standing in different corners of the crowd. "Amanda, Brad, Dylan, and anyone else who participated in the harassment I endured. Your suspensions are effective immediately. You'll be required to issue public apologies to me, to my father, and to any staff you've demeaned. An internal investigation will decide if you remain at Summit Tech." The three tried to duck away, but the security staff had already moved to intercept them. A hush thick with tension suffused the atrium. Jessica looked at them, not with malice, but with a clear, resolute gaze that told them there was no escaping responsibility. Some employees exhaled in relief, glad to see the bullies face consequences at last. In the days that followed, Summit Tech experienced a whirlwind of transformations. Jessica set a new tone, a shift from elitism toward respect for all employees, from the janitorial crew to top executives. She mandated that every manager spend 1 day a month working side by side with custodial or cafeteria staff to understand the dignity of their labor. She insisted on new policies that made service staff integral to decision-making on workplace conditions. Meanwhile, Amanda, Brad, and Dylan were each suspended without pay, forced to craft public written apologies. Part of their discipline involved working in the custodial department for a month if they wished to remain with the company. The old corporate cliques reeled in disbelief. The power structure they'd known was crumbling under the new CEO's vision. Some threatened to quit, but Jessica's calm statement remained. "If you cannot respect basic human decency, you are free to leave." National headlines soon buzzed about Summit Tech's new CEO, painting Jessica Thompson as a sensational figure, a previously unknown young woman stepping from internship to the helm. She gave one short press conference stating simply that she'd been quietly placed in the internship to observe Summit Tech's culture. "I saw the cracks," she told reporters. "My father faced indifference for years. I wanted to see how employees truly behave when they think no one's watching. Now that we know, it's time to fix it." Journalists clamored for more personal stories, but Jessica kept her answers succinct. She spoke mostly about the new direction for the company and the significance of the Frank Foundation. The images of her father receiving the Summit Medal circulated widely, generating admiration and tears across social media. Jessica, never one for seeking limelight, handled interviews with measured grace and minimal personal revelations. She wanted the focus on the shift in corporate ethos, not her personal triumph. As the weeks rolled on, Summit Tech employees found themselves navigating an evolving environment. Some older executives welcomed the changes, recalling a time before hierarchical arrogance crept in. Others resisted, but the board backed Jessica fully. Morale among lower-level employees soared, especially the cleaning staff, the security guards, the cafeteria workers who felt seen and validated. They whispered their gratitude to Jessica, though she humbly deflected praise, citing her father as her real inspiration. The newly suspended bullies began their custodial shifts, scrubbing floors and emptying trash under watchful eyes. Some tried to hide behind excuses, but Jessica made it clear, if you cannot appreciate the dignity of honest work, this is not the place for you. The transformation was undeniably sweeping. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Jessica lingered in her new corner office, a stark contrast to the bare intern's desk she once occupied. The sun dipped low over the skyline, painting the windows in orange hues. She rose, crossing to the glass to watch the city lights emerge. A swirl of memory seized her, an image of herself as a little girl crouching behind a column in the lobby, waiting for her father to finish mopping. She remembered how large the building felt, then how unattainable the offices in the high floors seemed. Now here she was on one of the top floors, the occupant of the CEO's chair. She felt no surge of vanity, Only a calm sense of resolution. She was determined to honor the quiet perseverance her parents had taught her to ensure that no one else's child felt belittled for wearing secondhand clothes or for having a father who wore a janitor's uniform. She decided to check on her father before heading home. She rode the elevator down, stepping out onto a late-shift corridor. There she found him quietly polishing the elevator lobby's marble floor just as he'd done for so many years. His back bent over the polishing machine, though he'd earned the freedom to retire if he chose. But Frank Thompson was a man of habit, and perhaps he took pride in his daily routine. Jessica walked up and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. He turned, eyes lighting up with warmth. She noticed how the new metal on his shirt gleamed under the overhead light. "Hey, Dad," she said softly. He nodded, smiling. "How was your day?" She replied that it was fine, that the board meeting went well. "You know you could retire now," she teased. "Spend your days fishing or traveling or anything you want." Frank shook his head with a small laugh. "I like keeping this place clean," he said. "It's honest work. Besides seeing you up there in the CEO's office, that's worth everything to me." They shared a moment of silence, an unspoken bond passing between them. Then Jessica bid him goodnight, stepping back into the elevator, heart full. In the coming months, Summit Tech's culture became a national talking point. Other companies looked on with interest. Some praised the new approach, others scoffed at it as naive. But Jessica stuck to her guns. The Frank Foundation opened for applications, awarding the first scholarships to teenagers whose parents worked custodial or service jobs in the city. The media spotlight returned, focusing on emotional stories: a janitor's son planning to study engineering, a cafeteria worker's daughter aspiring to be a doctor. Jessica quietly oversaw the foundation's progress, never hogging credit, always highlighting the donors and volunteers who made it possible. She introduced each scholarship recipient to her father, let them see that the path from the cleaning staff to the C-suite was not just a fairy tale. The press dubbed them the father-daughter duo rewriting corporate history, which made Jessica smile wryly. She didn't see it as rewriting history, just correcting an imbalance that had festered too long. Those who once mocked her faced new realities. Amanda, after her suspension, tried to salvage her position with a contrite letter. She wrote about how she had only been parroting what others said, how she never truly intended to harm Jessica, but the board recommended her termination, citing her as a primary instigator of the culture of hostility. She packed up her corner of the HR department with a lowered head. Dylan, forced to do custodial labor for a month, emerged with a humbled attitude, writing an honest apology that circulated through the company channels. He was demoted, but Jessica eventually let him remain at Summit Tech, believing in second chances if people genuinely changed. Brad, on the other hand, quit in a huff, refusing to scrub floors. He left the building cursing the ridiculous do-gooder ideology that had taken over. He posted rants online but garnered little sympathy. The tide had turned in Jessica's favor. More and more employees recognized that her stance was about basic decency. Internally, the company soared. Employee satisfaction rose, public image improved. Jessica's leadership style, based on open communication and empathy, proved effective, aligning with the modern era's calls for greater corporate responsibility. She spent her days balancing financial decisions, meeting with product teams, and ensuring that the philanthropic arm grew steadily. Her father kept his custodial job, though now employees greeted him with genuine warmth, no longer ignoring the man who'd worked there for decades. When new hires came in, Jessica made sure orientation included a segment on the importance of respecting every role. She wanted to embed these values so deeply that no future wave of hires would revert to arrogance. Sometimes Jessica would sit alone in her office reading the thank you notes from scholarship recipients. She felt a swell of emotion recalling that child she'd been huddling behind a column with her tattered homework notebooks, listening to her father's footsteps echo at midnight. She saw the parallels now. Kids who might have grown up overshadowed by wealthy peers would have a fighting chance at an education. In those moments, she would imagine her mother smiling, proud of them both. The old pain of seeing her mother scorned for wearing thrift store dresses felt distant, replaced by the knowledge that their family's legacy was now helping others break free from limiting stereotypes. One spring afternoon, nearly a year after her appointment as CEO, Jessica organized a small commemorative event, the official unveiling of a plaque in the lobby dedicated to the frontline workers of Summit Tech: custodians, security personnel, cafeteria staff, those who formed the company's backbone but had gone unrecognized for so long. She invited every employee to attend, from executives to the cleaning crew. At the ceremony, the crowd gathered under the warm sunlight pouring through the glass roof. She saw her father at the forefront, a mixture of humility and pride shining in his eyes. A hush settled. Jessica stepped up to the plaque, reading the inscription, "To all who serve, who clean, who watch, who feed, who maintain this building stands because of you." Applause erupted, far more genuine than any applause she had heard when she was an intern. She felt tears prick her own eyes. That night, after the ceremony ended, Jessica lingered by the plaque, her father beside her. He placed a hand on her shoulder, voice thick with emotion. "I never thought I'd see this day," he said softly, gazing at the words etched in polished metal. "Your mother and I. We just wanted you to chase your dreams, but we never imagined you'd do it here in the place that overlooked us both." Jessica nodded, swallowing hard. "Dad, you always taught me to find pride in honest work," she whispered, "and I wanted them to learn that pride as well." They embraced father and daughter, the caretaker and the CEO, overshadowing every shadow of scorn that once lingered in these halls. Though the press eventually moved on to other stories, Summit Tech's transformation remained a shining example of how a company could pivot from elitism to empathy. Within Jessica's leadership circle, the phrase, "real worth doesn't live in a nameplate or a paycheck," became an unofficial motto repeated in induction sessions. Staff members who once looked down on custodial roles started volunteering for cross-department experiences. The cafeteria witnessed managers serving meals to employees on Fridays not as a stunt, but as a genuine gesture of unity. Jessica watched these changes unfold with quiet satisfaction, never seeking personal accolades. She simply fulfilled her vow to her father to create a place where no one's background condemned them to ridicule. Years from that initial shock of the Monday announcement, Jessica occasionally recounted the story of her internship to new hires, minus the dramatic tension. She'd mentioned how she was mocked for wearing a t-shirt carrying an old backpack revealing her father's job. She'd describe how it felt to be ridiculed for simply existing in a role they considered beneath them. The new hires would shake their heads appalled, seeing the inclusive culture that now flourished. She'd smile gently, reminding them that not so long ago, Summit Tech was a different place. Change can come swiftly when truth is laid bare. And so, the once simple girl named Jessica Thompson continued to lead Summit Tech into an era of prosperity, not just in finances, but in moral standing. Her father still walked the corridors at dawn, though these days employees greeted him with hearty hellos and sincere nods. She'd wave at him from across the hall, sometimes calling him Dad in public without shame, if anything with a calm pride. The final vestiges of that old, cruel hierarchy had evaporated, replaced by a more egalitarian spirit. People spoke of them, father and daughter, as a symbol of how diligence and humility triumph over prejudice. The reformed environment spurred Summit Tech's growth, and Jessica kept forging ahead, mindful never to forget the origins that had shaped her so profoundly. If this story moved, you don't forget to like it, share it, comment below, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for stories that remind us real leadership wears no label and dignity doesn't ask for permission to rise.